And good morning, everyone. I'm also going to talk about another intangible asset. In my work and in my life, I have found that intangible assets are really the most intriguing thing. So I'm just going to get started. Curiosity. Curiosity is the single most important habit that you can cultivate in your life. That's the whole speech right there. It's easy. It comes naturally, and it's self-sustaining. Thank you. We're actually genetically programmed to be curious. We have a gene called DRD4, and it codes for a protein called dopamine release receptor. And dopamine, as you may know, is often called the reward or pleasure hormone. So what happens with curiosity, one of the great things about being curious is that when you're curious, the brain releases dopamine. And dopamine makes you feel good. So we're talking about something that's good for you that has a positive feedback loop. So the more curious you are, the more dopamine. And the more dopamine you get in your brain, the more pleasure you feel, and you become more curious. So this is a really interesting phenomenon. There is a variant called 7R, and only about 20% of the population have this particular mutation. And people who have this particular mutation have an unusually high level of curiosity. So as you might expect, explorers have this kind of a gene. And I wouldn't be surprised if I personally have this gene. As you heard, my life actually has really been very much directed by curiosity. And I just love learning. I love to learn about everything. Where would we be without curiosity? This is an important question. So from an evolutionary perspective, okay, we have always been struggling for survival. So you think about this, okay? Long, long time ago when we were in the jungle and we were facing predators that were much bigger than we were, much stronger, much faster, much more aggressive, right, than we were. And so we were nowhere close to being the top of the food chain. Right? Our lives were literally in danger. So how would we survive? Number one key point. How are we going to survive? What will we need to survive? So one of the things that, so from the first time we're born, okay, when we first open our eyes, we're very busy exploring the world. Right? We marvel at everything, at the sun and the moon and the stars. And we watch animals and we copy their behavior and we learn. We're constantly testing ourselves, learning and developing. Now, all animals can do this. But what makes humans so uniquely special, what is our most basic, fundamental drive, is our obsession with tools. Okay, we have these incredible things. Our entire history, and look at these. This goes back sort of like the Stone Age through some middle period to a relatively modern toolkit. And all of these pictures I'm going to use come from Wikipedia, so I feel very comfortable about sharing the pictures. So, tools are really the key point here. Think about this. Again, imagine. Who might have been the very first engineer? Okay? First engineer. Imagine that you were a prehistoric male watching another male bashing at an animal. You know, what were you thinking? You know, what was working in this thing? What was not working? So let me give another example. How long do you think, how many times do you think a prehistoric male watched the thunder and the lightning and was awestruck by the power of fire? What do you think it took for that realization of how immensely important fire would be. Right? So some ancestor somewhere realized that tools would give us control over our environment. So that's why it's so important. But if we stay with the fire idea, so imagine, suppose maybe it was a prehistoric female who discovered fire. Right? What would have motivated her? How would she have figured out what was good and what was dangerous? How many burns did she have to suffer before she realized that this was something interesting? Was it the comfort of the fire that made her feel secure and comfortable? Or was it the smell of cooked food, which would have been a totally new experience for her? Okay? Fire changed her life dramatically because it gave her control over her environment and over some wild animals, including the humankind. This is what humans do. Right? We meet our challenges, we invent tools, we struggle to survive. Okay, this was about 1 million years ago. So let's fast forward 1 million years to today. Think about it. Right now, countries all over the world are facing just dramatic challenges. Storms, floods, drought, water shortage, energy shortage, pollution, human-caused conflicts, poverty. The list is really, really endless. There's just so much that we are struggling with. And when we look at this, we have to ask ourselves, how do we even begin to think about how to deal with these problems? We are seeing such massive patterns of data that we don't understand how to deal with. So it's a very interesting thing about the brain. We understand things in patterns. We don't actually learn, we don't just store bits of information in our brain. And we look for those bits to form some pattern that we recognize. So part of the issue here is when each one of you is confronted with something unfamiliar, something unknown, how do you respond? What do you do about that? Okay? The problem is we don't know what we don't know. And what we do know is kind of like these dotted lines. They don't really fit into a pattern. They're not connected very well. And they're not really very solid to begin with. When we're faced with things that we don't understand, some people, uncertainty, some people react by being very fearful, and they just want to run away and hide. Other people see opportunity for creativity, to exercise whatever energies they have, and they feel hopeful and excited. So what can we learn from fear? Right? Let's talk a moment about being fearful. In particular, unproductive fear and productive fear. Because fear is necessary, right? Fear is what drives us for survival. But what are signs of unproductive fear? Unproductive fear is, again, kind of like running away. Some people have mental shutdown. Some people have physical shutdown. They can't move. Basically, what's happening is people want to shrink back into a comfort zone. Right? And you have to ask yourself, okay, why do we do that? What makes us comfortable in our comfort zone? Why do we stay there? Whereas people who believe in productive fear see an opportunity to use curiosity as a tool to push beyond our comfort zone and increase our capacity to do more. Now, this is a really important concept. The problem is we come up against a paradox of knowledge. The paradox is the more we know, do we fear more right? This is a fundamental issue in education. Education in schools, education in the home, education in society. The more we know, does that make us feel more afraid? And you have to really look at this carefully and think about what it means. And each one of you has to make a decision about the following question. Right? How much curiosity can I embrace? Right? Because the knowledge comes from the curiosity, and you say, well, if I'm going to be curious, how much can I really tolerate? And so every one of you is going to have a different answer to that question. As for me, my answer is I intend to keep learning how to ask better questions for as long as I live. I think that's really very important for me. But curiosity is not just for geeks. Okay? You think about inventors and innovators, particularly technology, they must be very curious people. But so are artists and musicians and entrepreneurs. So what can you do with curiosity? Curiosity can help you live longer. It can make you healthier. It can make you a better person, a better friend, spouse, or parent, especially as a parent. So this is the last word, last thought. If this were a beauty pageant, okay, the question that might be posed to finalists is, can curiosity lead to world peace? I believe that curiosity enhances our experience of the world. What do we admire about the world's great explorers? Their courage and determination to experience the unknown transforms them from being mere mortals to immortal heroes. If we, each one of us, could see ourselves differently in the context of the world, if we could have a greater appreciation of the richness of the world, if we could respect the differences among us, wouldn't that contribute to world peace? Thank you.